When our athletes take the field, stadiums roar, markets open, the world leans closer. Feet on the pitch, hands on the rim, hearts racing past the finish line. Football, basketball, athletics, not just games but industries. Talent becomes economy, passion becomes power. Sports are Africa's unstoppable arena.
In every path to excellence, there is a moment when a dream turns into a vision. And that vision becomes reality. This is the story of those who dared to dream, who pushed beyond their limits, and who now stand on the brink of greatness. The OPEX program is where it all begins, a grassroots initiative nurturing raw talent, teaching discipline, and instilling the values of hard work and perseverance. With Bidvest's unwavering support, these athletes have been given the opportunity to shine on the global stage, competing in events like the African Games, the Olympics, and the Paralympics.
For South Africa, history for all of Africa.
This is more than just sponsorship. It's a commitment to our people, to the future of South Africa, and to the power of dreams. This is our story, a story of passion, dedication, and belief. This is Bidvest.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. I hope you've had a great lunch and made some great connections. If you could please take your seats so we can get our afternoon sessions underway. We've got so much coming up. Great panels, sports, the creatives. We've got an amazing performance coming up later for you. Please take your seats. I know there's a lot going on and you want to network and make those connections, but if you could please take your seats so we can start, that would be amazing. If you feel like you need to continue the conversation, well, do it outside of the hall, please, if you can. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So welcome back. I hope everyone had a great lunch and we're ready, right? Are we ready? That's what I like to hear. Amazing. So our next session, ladies and gentlemen, as you saw in that preview video, will take us into the world of sports. We're diving into the sports industry now. African talent, as you know, in sports is not just breaking barriers, but records and building a multi-billion-dollar industry. From basketball to football, African athletes are shining on the world stage. But how do we turn that brilliance into a thriving sports economy right here on the African continent? Well, right on the African continent, I should say, because we're not really on the African continent here, are we? But so how do we build that multi-billion-dollar sports industry on the African continent? To help us answer that question, please join me in welcoming to the stage a star lineup of leaders shaping the future of sports in Africa. Ms. Mpumi Madisa, CEO of Bidvest. Ms. Claire Akamanzi, CEO of NBA Africa. Mr. Salim Bora, Chairman of the Suma Group. Mr. Pumelelo Mlongo, a Paralympic champion and world record holder. We even have a Paralympic champion with us, ladies and gentlemen, here at Unstoppable Africa. And moderating this panel is the amazing Chine Ogumike, basketball star and ESPN broadcaster. Please welcome him to the stage. You're welcome.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Oh, I have to get the energy up. We're talking about sports. Good afternoon. I'm going to try something that I do with my basketball campers. Please, free your hands, free your hands. 1 clap, 2 claps, 3 claps, 1 clap. Wonderful. My name is Chiney Ogwumike. I'm a two-time WNBA All-Star. I also work on ESPN. I battle Stephen A. Smith and Kendrick Perkins for a living, and I win. But I'm so excited to be here with this amazing starting five. And I say this is a starting five because these are truly all-stars of sport industry. Now today I will serve as the point guard, but the theme here is about the transformative power of sports. Sports truly brings all of us together. I know that there's a lot of governance happening with the UN General Assembly, but the one thing that we can all agree on is a love of sport. Now, to start our conversation, I'd love to introduce our captains of sport and industry. Of course, we have Ms. Mpumi, who is our captain of investment and finance. Claire, my big sis, CEO of NBA Africa. Mr. Salim as well, who has done tremendous with development, especially when it comes to infrastructure. And my bro, Tevin, who is literally a captain, a champion, and someone who has persevered at the highest levels. So as a warm-up to this conversation, I would love, if it's okay, Ms. Mpumi, for you to start, and then we go down. There's something when it comes to sport, when it's the value chain. So we have tremendous talent on the continent, but we have to maximize it. So how would you describe identifying what the problem is in your sector and how you're fixing it? And we'll go down the panel.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible. Thank you. Yeah, so you're right. So I love the way that you're asking the question around the value chain. Because in fact, when I think about sport, I think about it as an ecosystem. And it's an ecosystem that is just not about the athlete, but it's an ecosystem that is about everything that is around the athlete, whether it's the medical team, whether it's the coaches, whether it's infrastructure, and then it's media, right, and agencies, etc. So there's this massive entire ecosystem that is there. And just to your question around how do you then do the identification, for me, I think that as business, when we're coming into this industry to contribute, we should be thinking about it in the same way that we run our own businesses. You shouldn't be thinking about it differently at all. So in the same way in our own businesses, we think about investment opportunities exactly the same. The same way that you think about risk, exactly the same. The same way that you're able to separate from what is a good opportunity versus one that is average. You apply exactly the same kind of philosophy and exactly the same kind of lens. And I think that talking to potential investors into this industry, I would say don't think about it any differently. In the same way, from a business perspective, we buy companies. We've got about 250 businesses across the world. I apply that exact same principle when I think about investment into sport.
That's very special. The problem and the solution that you're creating.
So the problem and the solution. First of all, it's really nice to be here once again. Chiney, very good to have you here. Chiney is one of our BAL ambassadors. The girls love to hear from Chiney. And I'm sure many of them get inspired to be like her when they grow up. Suma, very nice to see you here. Salim is building the infrastructure we need to transform sports in Africa. We work with him very closely, and he's built arenas in Africa, and we play in those arenas. But what is the problem? I think the problem is that we don't have enough leaders in Africa that see a comprehensive opportunity that sports brings, or basketball brings in particular. If you look at the story of Kaman Malwach, who was number 10 draft pick in the NBA. How many of you have heard about Kaman? Everybody, I hope. If you see his story, what made his dream possible? Having a plan that enables or grows every ingredient of his plan, of his story, that's what we need. We need places to play, arenas to play. We need a plan to build more arenas in Africa. Can you believe we only have 5 arenas in Africa that NBA finds of standards to play? Only 5 in Africa. We have 54 countries. There's a lot more to do there. Academies. One of the reasons that Kaman Malwach was able to develop his talent was to be in the NBA Academy in Senegal. So we need more academies, more pipelines to develop arenas. We also were able to see him play in the BAL. So he was one of the players in the BAL. He played for a number of teams, including City Oilers from Uganda. And so a comprehensive plan that allows talent to be developed, camps to be built, participation in camps and clinics, and then building a basketball league like the Basketball Africa League. That is what we need. We need the plan that allows that to happen. What are we doing about it as NB Africa? I think the two biggest contributions that we've seen so far that has enabled dreams like that of Kaman Malwach to happen is one, to have the NB Academy in Senegal, and number two, to have the Basketball Africa League that allows young Africans that want to play professionally to have a place to play. But it's not only them that benefit. When you have the Basketball Africa League that we've seen, economies benefit, talent benefits. And let me just leave you with two numbers. That number is 250, and the other number is 37,000. Because of BAL, the Basketball Africa League, being in existence, in just 4 years, we contributed $250 million to economies in Africa. $250 million by just one league. Because of that, we contributed 37,000 jobs. Now imagine how much more we can do if we played in almost every country of Africa. This would be truly transformational and truly unstoppable.
Mr. Salim?
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me, and great to see you, Claire, again. The challenge is about properly planning the future ahead of time. So in the countries that we have built these infrastructure works, we were very much encouraged and supported by the leadership. When we first started working with President Kagame, he set the rules in advance, and he said, I want to create a sports hub in Kigali. So the first portion of it was the arena. So we built the arena in record time, and then the next element was the Amahoro Stadium, and the whole 34 hectares of infrastructure and the land dedicated for this purpose is progressing one by one. And our good friend Masai Ujiri put his Zaria court next to it. So it's becoming an integrated facility and a nice ecosystem. So this is a long-term planning with fast-track delivery. So the long-term planning was done by the leadership. The fast-track delivery was done by our company, together with Claire, when she was at the head of Rwandan Development Board at that time. So the most important element is to run those infrastructure periodically, non-stop throughout the year. As we speak today, Rwanda is hosting the International Cycling Championship, and there are 330 viewers recorded to follow that event. I never knew cycling was so popular, but amazingly, the cycling championship start was given inside the arena. First time a cycling championship started from an indoor facility, whereas that's an outdoor sports. So creating these ideas and making these infrastructure alive is the key. And of course, the maintenance is another issue. Both infrastructure was maintained to the highest standards, and that's why all the organizers, they come, they want to have a musical show, a fashion show, a party gathering, any kind of indoor sports. So yeah, I mean, Rwanda should be taken as an example for other countries as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanae. Thank you so much for having me here. I think one of the biggest problems that I see in Africa is that we are born with a sense of humility that often downplays what we do, how we do it, and how we're shaping markets. And my solution that we've taken on as a team is to say that we'll be one of those athletes that come unapologetic, and not a consequence of our circumstance, but really show a lived reality of whether you're born in the southern tip of Africa in a township that is below the poverty line, you can one day sit here and be a Paralympic champion, a 3-time world record holder, and wear it proud that you get to choose the reality that you want to face the next day.
I am a daughter of educators, and we have some amazing individuals on the stage. So I want to take a moment. Can we sort of curb the side conversation so that we can appreciate their time here. So can we have the room just get a little bit more quiet? Can we have the room, please? Can we settle the room a little bit? Thank you. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. My mom would be like, back in the class. We have some 3 major themes here when it comes to sport development. And we all know the phrase, if you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. Well, we are so fortunate to have someone that has literally accomplished that right here on this platform, Mr. Salim. I don't think people understand a visionary who built an arena in 6 months on the continent. I was very fortunate and privileged alongside Claire to see it in Rwanda just a few weeks ago. And on top of it, welcome Zaria Court, the ecosystem of sport. So if you want these athletes to truly fulfill their potential for sport, it starts with the court, it starts with the platform. Can you sort of make the case for why we should be investing in the infrastructure of sport so that everyone can fulfill their dreams?
Well, as you rightly mentioned, without having the infrastructure, there will not be any game, there will not be any event. So the governments need to take this initial initiative and invest in that infrastructure, which later on can benefit from refinancing or naming rights, which in the beginning you cannot really set these out as you wish to happen. So, but you really need a first-class facility so that those other stakeholders can come and benefit from that infrastructure. So I was by curiosity looking this morning how many arenas were built in the continent since 2017. There are only 4, and 2 of them were built by us. So I'm saying, you know, how come the other countries, there are 54 of them, how come the other countries, they are not capable of investing or realizing any projects in that sense? So there's a big question mark in that. So I really would like to know the reason. Then when I'm thinking, maybe they are not really choosing the right partner to execute those projects, because I know that certain projects were initiated a couple of years ago already, and it's still not been inaugurated. And you know most of them, Claire. And so you really don't want to jeopardize your sports industry with wrong partners when it comes to major infrastructure execution. So I think the key word here, choose your partner, choose the right one. Yeah, thank you.
Can I add something there? So I think building arenas and infrastructure is crucially important, because we've said only 5 countries have the right standards. So that's extremely important. But building arenas is not enough. I think managing arenas like a business is crucial as well. We've seen places where you build infrastructure, you abandon it, you do 1 game, 2 games. But then we've seen arenas that when you manage them well as a business, is actually a very good business opportunity. When I was talking to Kyle, who manages, you know, QA Ventures, they manage arenas in Kigali, but also Dakar. They told us only 25% of the occupancy is basketball related. The other 75% of the occupancy is something else that is not basketball. So they're hosting Boys to Men, they're hosting John Legend, they're hosting the biggest pastors that can convene a whole village in the arena to pray in the arena. They're hosting technology hackathons in the arena. They're hosting big government political meetings. It's a venue that actually can be hired to do anything. Cycling. He just told us about cycling in the arena. We've seen, you know, Formula One awards in the arena, turned from an arena to something else. And so the business case is really about how you manage it professionally and promote it as a business case, including naming rights. The example he gave in Kigali, where the arena is called Beka Arena, Bank of Kigali paid millions of dollars so they can name the arena after them. That's how we want them to be managed, not just for games, but as an opportunity to really make money across different industries. Thank you.
Absolutely agree. And Mr. Salim, you mentioned having the right partners. I think there's no better partner than Bidvest. Why did you see sports truly be an opportunity for investment, Ms. Mpumi?
Yeah, so when we were looking for a place to partner from a social perspective, I said to the team, find me 2 things that align with the principles of our organization. I said, first of all, we're about excellence, right? Anything that we do globally across our 250 companies, we want to be at the top. Secondly, we're about inclusivity. So whatever we do, whichever community we touch, we want to see growth. Our people must feel who they are and be proud of the organization that they're with. So I said, find me something that aligns with those 2 things. And so when they brought Team South Africa as an opportunity for us to support, I said, great, so all races, all genders, all sporting codes, right? Abled, differently abled, et cetera, so we're ticking that inclusivity box. And then secondly, we're going for gold, right? That's about excellence. And so being in the space for us is just, it's natural. It's really not something that we have to overthink. And I love the fact that we understand that we're investing in an economy. Sports is an economy. We're investing in social cohesion. Sports brings people together, you know. We're investing in stable communities. We're investing in job creation. We're investing in young people. We're investing in talent. And so all of those things really just resonate with us as an organization.
And we see the product of your investment here with Tevin talking about Bidvest, supporting Team South Africa. You are a champion. Can we hear it for our champion, long jumper and sprinter? Now, when I started sport, a lot of people looked at me sideways. They're like, what is a girl doing playing basketball? She should be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer. This is not something you can take seriously. But now we have the medals, the awards, literally the highest honor in your country you have received. Can you tell me the journey of from where you started to where sport is now?
I think the journey of sports in our country, as Pumi Madisa alluded to, has been one that says that sport is a unifier. So that social cohesion, it's something that brings the community together to allow us to celebrate, to build together, to have a shared purpose and intentional actions in ensuring that the youth of today become the future leaders of tomorrow. And I think my personal journey as myself, you know, without your private sector muscle like Bidvest, I wouldn't be at the position where I had the necessary resources, I had the necessary capabilities that were beyond my own control so that I could go to the world stage in front of 80,000 people in the stadium, millions of people around the world, and have the confidence that this little kid from Africa can stand as Paralympic champion. And it's with those partners where you get the audacity to dream, and you get to dream with the freedom of, we are shapers of markets. We are the movers and shakers that the world needs to learn from.
I'm inspired, and you mentioned the youth of today being the future leaders of tomorrow. On this stage, we have the investment, we have the top-tier athletes, we have the programs, we have the infrastructure, all collectively here on this stage. But I'm curious about the grassroots, because we have the Basketball Africa League, right? It's fully functional, super successful, but there are young players that still feel like there are challenges to them pursuing their dreams. So Claire, could you talk about the development of grassroots when it comes to the sport perspective and how that can be supported in the future?
I think it's very important to invest in the grassroots when the kids are still really young and expose them to the game of basketball in particular. And so what we're doing with that is our program called the Junior NBA program that we have present in more than 20 countries in Africa. We partner with schools, ministries of education, and ministries of sports, and we work with them to bring partners to develop curriculum in basketball in schools. We train coaches, we train the kids, and then we really live a program that can sustain itself in those schools. We think that's extremely important. There's a lot more work that needs to be done. Today, we have about 350,000 boys and girls that have gone through the program, the Junior NBA program. We believe that we should be reaching millions and millions of children on the African continent to do that. But the good news is that many partners in the corporate world in Africa are really partnering with us to make this possible. I'll give you a few examples. Safaricom in Kenya, that we launched last year. Safaricom is one of the biggest telecom companies in Kenya. We partnered with them, and in our first year, we reached 15,000 kids in different schools across Kenya. In Morocco, we partnered with UM6P, one of the universities in Morocco, and we're able to really bring the game of basketball closer to schools. And so for me, I think that program that integrates basketball and sports in schools with the ministries of education is the one response to really making sure that at the grassroots level, we're bringing the game of basketball to young girls and boys.
So, Claire, you also mentioned earlier, and I'm not sure if everyone really understood the gravity of what you were saying, Kaman Malawach, his story. Someone who was a product of grassroots leagues and development, and I was fortunate to be on stage with him as he was drafted into the NBA. And to me, he probably had one of the most moving pictures. Yeah. He was there, standing strong, tears down his face, and you know what he said? I have the entire continent on my back. I was recently in Rwanda with Masai Ujiri, Giants of Africa, and his theme of his camp, where he brought over 320 athletes from 20 different countries, was a borderless Africa. There's this notion that we're so much stronger together than we are apart. And so the reality, and Kaman Malawach, when we interviewed him, he said, be delusional about your dreams. I thought that was interesting because from a young perspective, not knowing what's possible, the idea to be an NBA player is delusional. But I believe now there's a reality, there are pathways that make it easier for the future Kamans. So I'm curious, starting with you, Tevin, what is the reality that sports brings that you hope people know? And then we'll go down. What is the reality of why this is something we should truly invest in?
I think there's truly a missing gap, and the investment case is that grassroots. If you just look at South Africa as an example, school sports, you get 20,000 to 30,000 people that attend that at every weekend. Which corporate here says that they do not want an active, captive audience that is ready to hear about what they do, why they do it, and where their values are aligned? But I think what sports really brings, and I want the investors to hear, is that unity doesn't mean uniformity. And that power of fragmentation that as a collective with our unity, a unified purpose, what we can do for this continent is beyond any measure. And as you alluded to, Shanae, is that when you dream, keep being delusional, that one day when we look back, we'll say that we sat here, we spoke about what was unstoppable, and now that's the reality for the world.
The reality is the global sports industry is $3 trillion. Africa is getting only 4%, maybe 3, between $9 to $12 billion. So, so much to do, and Africa can make so much out of this idle capacity that unused, and with 1.4 billion population and average age of 19 of the continent. And on one side, we are talking about critical minerals. The real critical minerals is the youth in Africa. So that needs to be mined first. And with that kind of a talent and the capacity, this $3 trillion industry should be mostly used by the African countries and African people. Thank you.
Great. I'll say two things. One, we know that Africa is one of the fastest growing regions economically, but sports is growing twice as much as GDP on the continent. Sports is growing, the sports economy is growing at 8%. GDP in Africa is growing at an average of 3 to 4%. There is the opportunity to invest in sports. The second thing I'll say is we are all aspiring to become one Africa. We've talked about the African Continental Free Trade Area, where we integrate goods, services, and people of Africa. Sports is already doing that. If you look at the BAL that we host in 4 countries in Africa, imagine how many people from both players, talent, coaches, fans, travel from one country to the other in order to experience the game of basketball. Look at the merchandise that the fans wear that is produced and sent from one customs territory to the other. We're moving goods and services across the continent. Look at broadcasting. You know, people that watch across every country in Africa. We show our games in 54 countries in Africa, but we play in 4. The rest of the continent is able to watch because there's movement of broadcasting services or streaming services across the different countries. And so if we talk about AFCFTA, let's talk about sports.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I've got a very, very strong view that business on the continent must disproportionately invest in sport. And the reason for that is that, there's certain things that the continent has been endowed with just naturally. So we speak a lot around the minerals on the continent, and then we're very critical around the fact that they're extracted and then we buy them back. We speak a lot about agricultural products from the continent. We have the most land on the continent. One of the things that we don't speak about is that we've got the best talent on this continent. How do you have a continent with the least infrastructure in general, and then the least infrastructure for sport, produce some of the best athletes in the world? How does that happen? How is the fastest man on the world today 100 meters from Botswana? How does that work? How is the best rugby team in the world from South Africa? How is the best basketball players from the continent when we've got the least infrastructure? So African children are disproportionately blessed from a sporting perspective. They can do it, whether they've got the infrastructure or not. They're disproportionately blessed. And so when we've got that, we must back it.
Imagine how much more we can do if we invested.
Completely agree. Now, before we go, you guys know I'm a hooper, I'm a basketball player. Is that Fess? What's up, Fess? My friend, Festus Azili's here, NBA player. Shout out to Fess. We know as players, it's nice to be in the starting lineup. I started off this conversation saying we've got all-stars, we've got starters. But here in this room, we have people that might be on the bench. They might think, oh, sports is interesting, but I'm not sure. I'm a little hesitant. So I'd ask each and every one of you, what is your call to action? Festus knows, we always talk about shoot your shot. So in these rooms that are so special, this happens yearly, we all are shooting our shot, pushing our initiatives, our agendas. We're all collaborating for everything that you're doing, whether it's NBA Africa, Bidvest, Suma, you yourself as a champion athlete. Can you explain what you're doing and how people can support you in this moment so we take them from being on the bench to being in the game?
That is an interesting question. Thank you, Shanae. I think my call to action is very simple, is that if this is truly a shared passion and a united purpose that we want Africa to shape markets, let's start. Let's start by an intentional action, whether that is in infrastructure, whether that is in trade. I personally, as Pumi has said, that sports is your way. And if you're investors looking for shareholder values that is going to be in the multiples, you can only currently find it in sports as your asset class. So if you're looking for shareholder value, you don't need to look any further.
I think we are all pieces of the puzzle. Now, what we are planning to do, actually, we've been discussing this with Claire already. We will put together all the missing pieces of the puzzle to make sure that we act in a unified way and reach our objectives. Today, I'm sure if we get together and ask few countries and governments and heads of states to build their arena in a very short time, I'm sure we will have a list of 10 countries at least. So I think this should be our aim for the near future.
We would like to build 1,000 courts in the next decade across the African continent. Will you join us?
My call to action is for business to put more money into sport, but apply our business principles and fundamentals, right? We work on outcome and output and KPIs. Give the administrators KPIs so that we strengthen administration in sport. One of the reasons why you find it difficult to take the leap is because our administration in sports at times can be a little bit shaky. But if you invest, you become the shareholder. and you set the KPIs and you strengthen institutions, right? So institutions don't strengthen on their own with shareholders sitting on the other side. We have to jump in, put the money, help with the strategy, and say this is what excellent looks like, and hold hands. Thank you.
I have goosebumps. How profound. I guess I'll join in. My call to action is to support our youth. I believe Mr. Salimi mentioned that most countries on the continent, 60, 70% of the population is youth. Yet we have an opportunity gap for them to really fulfill their dreams. But to take it even further, we have to support our young women and girls. And being able to, on this platform a year ago, launch my foundation, Queens of the Continent, I'm collaborating with all of these partners here because in Nigeria, I'm a daughter of the diaspora, but got Niger blood, right? As a daughter of Nigeria, I learned these amazing stats. You guys know I debate using facts. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't, but women barely lie, so I don't know what that came from. But my point is that I learned that every year you support a young girl advancing in school, she increases her earning potential by 10%. Did you know that women and girls invest 90% of what they make back into their communities? So if you support girls through platforms like sports, as the first female ambassador for the Basketball Africa League, the word came up, and I think it was you, Tevin, confidence. If you want to change the world, you support youth, you support young women and girls, and you also transform the idea that maybe being a part of this creative economy is their place, that they belong. So once again, thank you so much for this conversation. These amazing all-stars who have joined me here. And we look forward to seeing you at games, helping us build arenas, joining us at the Basketball Africa League Finals, admiring our champions. This is just the beginning, and sports is taking over. Thank you.
That was excellent. No, get out of here. I'm a fan too. We just met for the first time and we're fans of each other. That's awesome. How amazing was that? Thank you so much. That was an incredible conversation about sports and infrastructure and all of the work that goes into it. People have seen win gold medals. People have seen and been to their arenas on the continent. I was just speaking to Claire recently in Kigali. It's all happening.